Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Identity Project. Today, I have a special guest, a client, a friend. I'm excited because this is, I think, the third or fourth nutrition client that I've brought on to the podcast. But my friend Tony, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Good, man. Happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time again. Tony, what I want to do today is I really want to dive into kind of our journey of working together. We obviously, you kind of just graduated, if you will, a few weeks
Yeah.
back from the program. And we worked together for, what was it? Eight months?
Yeah, I believe so. 7 or 8 months. Yeah.
7 or 8 months, yeah. So yeah, man, let's take it back just kind of for the listeners here. And I want to dive just really kind of where were you at in your nutrition journey before you found us? And then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. So, yeah, right before we started working together, about 6 months before we started working together, I just started CrossFit for the first time. I'd worked out, off and on my whole life, but I was brand new to CrossFit. And I got turned on to the templates from RP Strength. Um, they were affordable. They were real generic, and I didn't know a ton about nutrition, so I figured I'd try them out. And I did the steps where they kind of line you out, give you the generic stuff, and then they start kind of stepping your carbs down and stepping your calories down. And I got to where I just felt like trash because my carbs and calories had gotten so low. And I was talking to my coach, Logan, and he had been working with you, and so he gave me your information and kind of went online and kind of checked it out a little bit, and then reached out, and that's when we started working together.
So knowing what you know now, obviously a conversation that we talked about a lot through the time working together was that word of like biofeedback, right? And so this is kind of starting to track and look into some of the categories like your sleep, right? Like your digestion, your energy levels, your recovery, sex drive, all of these different things. And so, like looking back in the beginning there, like, did you know, like, was it one of the things where you were just kind of like, ignoring your body, if you will, just because you wanted to make sure you were following, the template to a T? Or did you feel any of these signs? Did you see any of these signs in terms of a biofeedback standpoint?
Yeah. I mean, I noticed, obviously I started feeling worse. I was still training the same amount and the calories are getting lower, and I had really low energy, really low performance. And I just thought, hey, I guess this is how it's supposed to be. I mean, you're supposed to grind it out, and this is what you're supposed to do. I didn't have hardly any education about it, and I didn't have anybody to reach out to say, hey, is this normal that I'm feeling this way? I just kind of was going off of what I've read off the internet, and just kind of trying to fumble my way through it. So looking back on it now, I think, well, no wonder you felt terrible the whole time, and I wasn't doing all the little things that we talked about, and that, I mean, even biofeedback at all. I would notice myself feeling terrible, but it's not like I didn't have the education or anything to go, well, you didn't have a good meal after you worked out, and you slept about 5 hours, and then you got up and trained the next day. And looking back on it now and thinking, well, that was completely dumb. But at the time I was just like, well, this is what you're supposed to do because this is what it says on this template, and it didn't. The only thing I put in to get the template was my age, height, and weight. That's about all. So it was very, very generic.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's interesting. We talk a lot about, and I don't ever want to talk bad about companies or anything like that. For some people, I'm sure templates, work, but for for a lot of people, I believe that they just don't. And it's just, it's because of the lack of the individualization. It's because of the lack of, really human interaction and being able to just answer some of these questions, right? That template doesn't talk back to you, right? You can't ask a
Right.
question to the template. So yeah, man, I really completely agree. We hear it, obviously it's one thing we're talking about today, but it's something that we hear from so many clients. And it's just unfortunate. So like back then, what, like at the very end of the template, like how many calories were you consuming and how many hours a day were you training?
Uh, you know, it was probably, I was down to, it was under 2000. I'd have to go back and look at some notes, but it was under a gram per pound of carbs a day. I mean, it was next to nothing. I think the lowest that I ever got down was, no, it was under 3/4 of a gram of carbs a day. And I was about 200 pounds, so uh, I would say probably 1900 calories or so. I'd have to go back and look at the notes. And then I was training probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I would try to do a strength piece and a conditioning piece at least every day. So it was a lot for the amount of calories that I took in. And I also work in construction, so I don't do a lot of the manual physical hard stuff anymore. But I mean, 10,000 steps is a drop in the bucket compare on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So
So were you, was this a 12-week template? Was that right? Or
I think so. I think they lined it, the way they lined it out was they gave you like 3 levels. They said, hey, stay on this first level until you quit losing weight. It was a cutting template. So once your weight loss drops below uh, a pound a week or 2 pounds a week, then you can move to the next level, and so on and so on. But again, I didn't have the education, so um, I didn't follow that as strict as what I was supposed to, because everybody wants results right now. So it's like, maybe I'll just start off at this second level and see how it goes. I'm tough; I can handle it.
that makes sense. That makes sense. So, I mean, if you had to guess, just based off, your knowledge that we've built on logging food and weighing food and kind of measuring, like how many calories a day do you think you're eating before you started doing the template? Like what type of drop were we looking at?
Oh, half. I was probably at 3,500 to 4,000, and they were probably garbage calories too. I mean, before I started working on like even looking at nutrition, like it wasn't anything to sit down and eat a whole pizza, or go to anywhere out to eat. The Chili's or whatever. You go down and sit and eat a burger and fries at Chili's. That's probably 1,500 calories at least. And I was eating fast food during the day and stuff like that. So yeah, I was probably around 4,000 calories. So, and to immediately drop to in the low 2000s or wherever it was. I mean, it was a huge drop.
And were you training before you started doing the template? Were you training, you were training 2 to 3 hours a day then as well, or?
Yeah, but it was like a 24-hour fitness and stuff like that. I started the template almost at the same time that I started doing CrossFit. So I'd go in there and stand in front of the mirror and do like an hour and a half of curls and then an hour and a half of chest exercises, and then I'm gonna walk on the stair stepper for like 10 minutes and then I'm gonna leave. So just like everybody else in there.
Yeah. Well, don't make fun of me. I don't do an hour and a half of bicep curls, but I definitely am in the Globo gym much more these days. Not so much in the CrossFit space, but man, so not only did you cut your calories in half, but you also started basically increasing the intensity of your workouts, going from pretty much Globo gym workouts into like a CrossFit setting, and then
Yeah.
obviously that started to increase more and more over the months and and then where you are today. So that's crazy, man, because basically you're going in two different directions, right? Or really, it's
Right.
like it's committing like nutritional and performance like suicide, if you will, because not only are you going half the calories that you're eating before, so taking yourself into a huge calorie deficit, you're also basically training harder than ever before on way less fuel. And so that's obviously why we felt things so immediately. So how long would you say it actually took before you started feeling like crap?
Uh, Not very long at all. Like the first probably like the first week was just a huge shock. Like but I thought, hey, this is how it's supposed to be, I mean, my body's going to get used to this, and then like it just progressively got worse and worse and worse. I mean, and I was getting uh that when I was getting, I mean, performing worse and performing worse, and was my sleep was more erratic. uh Looking back on it, it was almost an um immediate sign that, hey, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think anytime we do something like so drastic like that, it's essentially like crash dieting,
Right.
mixed with, I don't know, weekend warrior, right? The guy that like doesn't work out
Right.
all week and then tries to go like kill himself on the weekend and gets injured type of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like what we don't know, right? I mean, this is me back in elementary school, middle school, high school. Like I got a college football scholarship, and they told me I needed to put on a little bit of weight. And what I thought I needed to do back then was eat 5 chicken burritos a day every single day that summer, and then spend $200 to $300 a month at this supplement store or from some supplement guru telling me
Right.
what I needed. And it's an example of like what we don't know. What we don't know. We can't get mad at ourselves for later on in life. We now we know, and it's all part of that nutritional journey, and it's part of the process of education.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the biggest like immediate benefits that I took away from us working together is, even when I started to get interested in the nutrition aspect and realize that, you know, working out's only part of it, and if you're not recovering properly, then you're not gonna see shit off of it. The like once I reached out, or once I got on like the internet and stuff like that, I mean, there is so much information out there that, I mean, I still read on nutrition all the time, and it, even after working together for us for 8 months, and everything that you've taught me, it's still hard to weed through a lot of the stuff. So back then I had no clue what I was looking at. You get on one website, and it tells you, hey, this is what you need to do, and the next one it'll tell you the exact opposite, and really feel like it really was a helpless feeling, because it's something that, you know I was working so hard at doing, and I just didn't know where to go.
Well, and that's literally the most frustrating part of the process, right? Like we get motivated at certain times, right? We go all in on trying to, fix whatever it is that we're trying to fix. And, we have all of this information. It's information overload, right?
Right.
And you know, we talk about it all the time. It's like our mission is to kind of help clients filter out the BS in the nutrition industry. And you know, like I love seeing clients like you being able to continue on and really embrace the idea of like, look, you're your own science experiment. Like you should not trust anyone. Like you need to do your own due diligence. And the reality of it is it's 2019. The information is out there everywhere. Like the magic is in the application. And so the more you can apply yourself to kind of learning, you know, like we worked together for 8 months. That's phenomenal, right? But this is a
Right.
lifelong learning process and a lifelong journey. So I love to hear you say that.
Yeah. One, that if you remember back, that was one of the first things when we talked initially, uh, that it kind of I was kind of on the fence of, hey, is this something that I want to do? And that was one of the first things I asked was, well, how long do you usually work with a client? You know, because um, I was really interested in getting all this education, but I I I don't know that I was interested in having, you know, a full-time nutritionist for the rest of my life. You know, I'm not a professional athlete or anything like that, and so that, as nice as that would have been to have the means to do that, I'm just not in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be like, you know, you or I going and hiring a personal chef, you know, that like cooked for
Right.
us for the rest of our life, right? But that's the magic of it, right? It's like we hire these coaches to educate us, right?
Right.
We don't hire coaches if you know, for those of you listening out there, if you have a coach right now and all they ever do is just tell you what to do and they don't ever actually like educate you, they don't give you resources, tools, like they don't give you kind of the why, the how, you know, for example, all of these different things, then you know you're going to get to the end of your journey, you're going to get the result, but you're going to lose it because you didn't get educated along the way. Like you didn't get equipped with those tools, right, to actually sustain it for the rest of your life. And so that's the biggest piece, you know, like we have to make sure that education is being enforced because education not only drives compliance, but it also, you know, really is kind of those nutritional tool belts or the nutritional tool belt, you know, that you can carry for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been really, really pleased. I know it's only been, you know, a couple weeks or a month or whatever since our last call, but I've been really pleased with um, how much that it's that it that everything has stuck with me, because I was pretty nervous about it when we stopped working together. I was like, man, I don't know if this is going to work or not, you know, because one of the biggest things right off the bat was the accountability. And you know, it's it's really not there now. You know, you're only accountable to yourself once we stopped working together. And so I was super apprehensive about uh, just just sticking with everything, but so far so good.
Yeah, you know, that's the scariest part, right? Of graduating, if you will, right?
Right.
And it's no different than me with, you know, a business coach, right? Like you know, everyone knows I work with Jason Phillips and you know, it's no different. Like I really look forward to our calls because, you know, not only am I learning a lot from him, I'm also being held accountable, right?
Right.
And that's, you know, it's basically a 50-50 equation, you know, like when you work with a coach, like 50% of it's education and the other 50% of it's accountability. And you know, if the coach does his or her job and the client, you know, also invests and puts in the time, then that 50% of the equation, after we get done working with each other, we've established a really, really good foundation. Now, you're not going to have a PhD in, you know, all of this information, but like you're going to have everything that you need to be successful in your own life, right?
Right.
And so I think the other side of it is that other 50%, which is the accountability. And so when we start working with when we stop working with a coach, that's what we lose. We have 50% of that drop off, right? So it can be scary, you know. But I think for you, like that's why, and really all the clients that we work with for, you know, kind of more of an extended period of time, I would say kind of that 6 month plus period of time, it's what I preach the most, which is it's not necessarily just about the nutrition coaching. Like, of course it's about that, but it's so much more about the mindset that's developed along the way. Because once you lose accountability, your mindset better be on point, because if not, you're going to go right back to your old ways because you're not going to prioritize your own self.
Right. Yeah. That was, once we got towards, right around that 5 or 6 month range, that was one of the really, surprising things that I got out of working together. Is I didn't expect it to transfer over to every aspect of my life. I mean, work and parenting and just everything on a daily basis, because we had put so much into the nutrition planning, and then we migrated into talking about your goal setting and planning that stuff out and everything, and it really changed a lot the way I do a lot of things, and there's several instances where I can remember looking back on them after it was over and thinking, you know what, I probably wouldn't have. First of all, I probably wouldn't even be reflecting on it like I am now. And then I probably wouldn't have handled that situation that way, a year ago or 6 months ago. And I was really, really happy with that part of it. I mean, it changed everything in my life. So I was really happy with it.
I love that, man. We obviously had, a similar conversation, on our last call working with each other. And, as I told you, I mean, hearing words like that is literally why we do what we do. Like, of course I love educating people in nutrition, but like nutrition has the power to actually change your life, right? Nutrition and lifestyle, right? Like the habits, right? Like the way we live our life. And so, it's literally like the oxygen for me. Everybody that knows my story, it's like 10 years ago, dedicated the rest of my life to helping other people. And it's literally what brings me fulfillment in life. So, I love hearing you say that, man. I think, the thing that's really, really interesting when we start to look into what you just talked about is, nutrition, health, wellness, right? Like when you create that as a solid foundation in your life, you're gonna see all the other areas of life excel as well, right? And so one thing that I kind of stole from Garrett White that was introduced to me from my mentor, which was kind of this whole idea of like the 4 pillars, and that's what we talked about a lot of, which was, body, being, balance, and business. And so with you, we started with that first pillar, which was body, right? That's this nutritional aspect, lifestyle, all that stuff. But like you said, we kind of extended into these other pillars. And that's really when you start to look into kind of personal development, mindset, and realizing really the thing that I realized that when I was 18 years old, which was we get one life. That's it. We get one opportunity. You could walk out of your house tomorrow and die. Like there's no guarantees, and it's all about perspective. Like we live in America, like our problems are really most of the time not as big as we make them out to be. And so, I think just having that perspective, listening to podcasts, doing personal development and just trying to live your life in a way that, live your best life, as they say, right?
Right.
I think that's so important. So that's definitely what we try to carry out.
Yeah. The big thing for me, what really, really turned a corner in my life, before we started working together and everything is being a father. That's a huge thing for me. And because it's not just me that I'm responsible for, and I know you just had a baby. So I'm really glad that through us working together and the changing that mindset of, and I can teach that to my kids, you know, and you know, I had great parents and everything, but you know, I didn't get taught that stuff growing up, you know, and I mean, for better or for worse, that's how it was. But I'm glad that I can pass some of this stuff off to my kids and say, you know, hey, you know, you eat this stuff because it's good for your body, and kind of, they're only 5 and 6, so you got to plug some of that self wellness and awareness in whenever you get a chance, in a way that they can understand it. But you do feel like you're building that foundation there for them, you know, and it's something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's powerful. I was actually on a call. It was a meeting right before this, and we were actually discussing nutrition specifically for kids, and also kind of just different strategies, best practices, you know, different things like that. So it's funny that you bring that up, because really the you know, the thing we walked away with from the meeting was it all starts with the parents, right? The parents have to lead from the front. And, you know, ultimately, like, we could sit here and make all of the nutritional resources in the world for, you know, tailored towards children. But if the parents aren't living that lifestyle, the children's not going to live, you know, the child's not going to live that lifestyle. So, you know, I think you're absolutely right in that, you know, just because we didn't get taught by our parents, you know, it doesn't mean that they didn't try their best or whatever. It was just a different time. Like, you
Sure.
know, they didn't know what they didn't know either. And information these days is out there everywhere. I mean, that's why we're excelling so much. That's why everyone's learning so much, because, you know, people that we never had access to before, we now have access to via podcast and blogs and whatever else. So yeah, man, it's exciting times ahead. You know, I'm excited to be a dad. I'm excited to, you know, just be able to lead from the front in that aspect, and, you know, try to just do my best. Like, I'm not going to be perfect. Like, I'm not going to be, you know, some food Nazi that doesn't let my kid ever do anything, you know,
Right.
but, you know, it's just all about finding balance. And I think, you know, the more we know, the more education we have, you know, the more we can, you know, just try to be able to navigate through these obstacles of life. And I think, you know, like, having a kid is just, it's that next chapter, you know, it's a journey in of its own. So
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. You know, it's kind of like you said with your tool. I think you called it a tool belt. You know, I mean, the more resources and the better you can equip yourself to handling those kind of situations, you know, when they come up, the better. You know, I've certainly uh, had some bad parenting moments where I probably could have handled that a little differently, but, you know, that's why you kind of got to educate yourself on stuff. So
yeah. Hey, I think we've said it like 3 or 4 or 5 times now, but what you don't know, you don't know, right? It's like,
that's right. Yeah,
um,
I enjoyed I went back and listened to a handful of episodes. The episode that you had specifically on kids nutrition. Um, I can't remember the guest you had on, but the story about his kid swearing in school, and you know, how he reacted to it and stuff like that. That was pretty enjoyable.
yeah, that was that was actually a fellow coach, and one of my buddies. His name's Josiah, actually, which is so funny because I met him this last summer, and 2 months after that, we found out that we were having our child. Obviously, we waited to find out gender. So once we found out gender, we found out it was a boy. Josiah was the name that was already picked out. So I got to kind of tell him that, hey, just named our son, you know, the same name.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
pretty
that is
excited
cool.
for that. But yeah, he has 2 little boys, so that was definitely a great interview to just kind of get his insight on, you know, his journey thus far, knowing that he's in the space, and you know, just things that he still struggled with as a dad. And it's just proof that, you know, like no different than Alex. She just went through pregnancy. Here I am, you know, with all this nutritional knowledge. And even though she knew exactly like the best way to go about pregnancy from a nutritional standpoint, the first trimester was really tough on her. She was throwing up almost every single day. Nutrition, from a nutrition standpoint, like our plan went to shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just goes to show, like life happens, right?
Being pregnant looks so miserable. I mean, look, I mean, I'm sure it's a magical journey that a woman takes, but every time I've seen a pregnant woman, I'm thinking, God, that looks miserable.
Hey, I have the utmost respect for women and birthing, the whole birthing process. It was me being in that room and seeing my wife deliver our child. Like I was bawling my little eyes out. I was crying nonstop, and it was you know, everybody says it's a life-changing moment, but when you experience it, it really is a life-changing moment.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's, yeah, it's definitely one of those things you'll never forget.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to transition back kind of a little bit here to the beginning of the process. So, I mean, obviously, you know, Logan Collins, that was somebody else that I worked with. That was your coach. So you kind of had that referral system. But, you know, one thing I'm always curious with was like, was there a period of time that you were like thinking about it or like skeptical, or, you know, for those of people that have been following us or kind of on the fence, like, you know, where were you at then? And maybe, you know, what's some advice that you could give for somebody that's kind of on the fence?
There, at first, I was skeptical because, you know, there's the financial aspect of it, and that wasn't a huge deal, but um, the misinformation, for lack of a better term, you know, like I'd read a ton of stuff, you know, from a ton of people who claimed to know what they were doing, you know, um, and so I was kind of skeptical at the start, um, but once we started working together, um, immediately for me was realizing how much better I felt, you know, and once we got everything on track with the calories and everything like that, that almost immediately went away because I felt so much better. I I was sleeping better. I was performing better in the gym. I was performing better at work. I was performing better, you know, in those other areas. And so I would say anybody who was kind of on the fence about it, for me for me personally, it's the best money that I've ever spent in my entire life. And whatever your goals are, I'm sure that this will benefit that because it's benefited me so much. And like I said earlier, it's the mental aspect and the habits that we form together, that you helped me form, will stay with me for the rest of my life. Like that's just how the mindset is now, because uh every time I've ever dieted before, every time I've ever tried something like this before, I've always it's always been, you know, a roller coaster, up and down results, and it's always been extremely hard because it was miserable the whole time. And I never felt like that when we were working together. You know, there as we started cutting, uh it did get slightly difficult, but nowhere near to like it was before. Like it, and the education that I received from doing all of it, like I feel confident that I could completely do a calorie cut completely on my own, you know. And so yeah, I would say anybody that's on the fence, about, you just got to dive in there to do it. I mean, if you're serious about whether it be your fitness or just being able to feel better on a daily basis. If you feel better, then you're gonna act, you're gonna be happier, you're gonna treat the people around you better. If if anybody's interested in any of those things, I would say definitely do it. I mean, if you're not interested in any of those things, then I mean, I guess don't, but for me, just the radical change that it made in my life over the 8 months has been night and day.
Man, I love that. I can't appreciate those words, anymore. I think that, I think anybody listening right now, like that's as motivational as you need to hear right there. If that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. uh, but dude, I love that, man. And I think that, me just kind of reflecting back on our time working together and like our journey working together, it's so cool because it's like you're like my little, like, I don't know, like, it's like a teacher, right? You're like my little student
Right.
that comes, and you're in kindergarten, and then we take you all the way through elementary school and middle school and high school and graduate you, so it's just kind of cool to see you evolve, everywhere from like the initial consultation or the initial assessment process and looking at like your food picture log and like seeing the pictures that you're sending, to the end of the process and kind of like what your meals look like, kind of the evolution of your cooking and all of this different stuff. So it's just always cool to reflect back and kind of see all the changes, see all the different, things that you've learned and implemented and really ultimately things that you actually wanted to incorporate into your life, like I never sat here and said, hey, like you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. It's more of like, hey, like here's some options, like here's some suggestions, like this works really good for me, maybe let's test it out, let's try it, let's see if you like it, let's see if it works, and maybe you hate it, that's fine too. But I think that individualization and figuring out and building what works best for you is ultimately, whether it's with iCoach Nutrition or any other company or any coach, like that's ultimately what we owe the client.
Yeah. Yeah, it I can't say enough about it. I mean, it really has been great. Just to give you an example of like how this has changed just like my everyday life. I used to kind of struggle with alcohol. Well, not kind of, I mean, a lot. And on the weekends, I mean, that's what I did, is drink and hang out and stuff like that. And now on Saturdays, like I've got like one or two people that come over and like we'll just cook, like, and we're like, hey, let's try this out. I saw this, on Instagram. Let's try to cook this out or whatever. And we'll cook it and like, yeah, that's pretty good, or that wasn't as good, and stuff like that. But I mean, that's what we do on Saturday nights a lot now. Or a year ago, I would, hang out with and have a good time, but drink to excess and it's just not in my life now. And that's because of the changes that we put in place and the choices that I made. So it's helped me a tremendous amount.
That's awesome, man. Well, and it just goes to show that, literally at any point in your life, if enough awareness is created, you have the ability to change, like, and I think for so many people, unfortunately, they just don't have that coach, they don't take that leap and they're not vulnerable. They don't hire a coach or have anybody in their life that can kind of have that 10,000 foot view and create that awareness for them. And maybe they do. But I think ultimately like that can create awareness for you. And then obviously from there, it's up to you to be able to take action. But I would much rather have to go along that journey having somebody by my side that I feel that actually cares and wants to help me, succeed. I think that's extremely powerful. And that's why, I mean, I've said it a million times. I have a business coach. I have a nutrition coach. Like, I'm a big believer in coaches, and I'm a big believer that coaches need coaches, because just because I have all this information, that doesn't mean a damn thing. Like, I still need accountability as well.
Right. And there's a lot to be said for, or in my opinion, of that 10,000 foot view. You every day, you can get wrapped up into so much of your own stuff, and it's right in front of you. To have somebody else's perspective is really, really beneficial, and outside of that, I would tell people, just, surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with positive people. You've been a huge influence on my life. Logan has been a huge influence on my life. The community that I found in the gym, the woman that I'm dating now, she's been a huge influence in my life. And I look back, a few years ago, the influence, the people that were my friends, I didn't know nothing against them, but they had a lot of negativity in their life, a lot of why me, and this is so hard, and I don't know what to do, and I really don't have a lot of people in my life that have that kind of attitude. And that's not by design or anything. It just, I found myself gravitating to more positive people, more positive thinkers. And that's been a huge aspect. And like you said, it's part of that mindset thing that was there, and I just didn't have the wherewithal to recognize it, like, until we started talking about it and stuff like that. I think that if people realized how much of a difference just that positivity and just that planning and just that structure, if people realized how much of a difference that would make for them, like, everybody in the world would do it. I don't think people realize how powerful that is. And maybe it's not to everybody else, but it was to me. Once we started working together on the nutrition, and then everything, it just snowballed together, and all those habits just fanned out to all these different aspects of my life without me even knowing it. And then looking back on it, I was amazed. I was blown away by the difference that it made, like, in my career even. I mean, I've always been a really successful guy. Always been like one of the youngest, most successful, at my position at work, and always succeeded at work. And it's at another level now, just from the mindset and the attention to detail that this whole process has taught me.
Man, you got me fired up. You got me fired up over here, / like teary-eyed / I don't even know, man. But dude, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I just absolutely love it. Like, I mean, this is the stuff that, like, fires me up. I mean, it does it because it's the transformative process. It's transformation. Like, it just goes to show that your past never ever defined you. Like, it only defines you if you let it define you.
Right.
Like, I went through a transformative process in a much different way, I guess, than a lot of people, in terms of, like, not necessarily like trying to, like, lose weight or something like that, but from a mindset standpoint, like, me going through everything that I went through, like it was extremely, extremely hard. And a lot of it was, putting my head down and essentially, I don't want to say like the screw you mentality to everybody else, like watch me, and watch what I do. But it was more of just like, I felt so bad, so guilty of everything that like all I wanted to do is be positive going forward. I didn't want any negativity in my life. I didn't want, in terms of environment, I didn't want any friends and family in my life that were negative. And I wanted to just create a very singular focus towards, I got a second chance at life. And I'm going to dedicate literally the rest of my life to serving other people, helping other people. And that's the answer. Like that's the key to life. Like that's the key to being happy. That's the key to finding fulfillment. It could be through nutrition coaching. It could be through whatever in this world that you want to do. But if you find a way to serve others, if you find a way to help people, you will be happy. Like it's just tried and true.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. And I do think that there there's a lot of like misconception or about I talk to some people and they're a lot of people are kind of standoffish about the self-improvement and the goal setting and everything like that, just because I don't think they realize what a difference that it makes. There is a difference in setting a goal in your head and writing it down and putting it on the fridge where you see it every day. Some people don't think that there's any difference at all, but I promise to put just something as simple as putting things down on paper. I mean, it's a game changer because then it's real, it's tangible. You see it all the time. It's not just when you think about it, and it's a way of holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we tell clients to do all the time for, whether it's a reminder, a goal or whatever, it's like, post note it, like, get the Post-it notes, like put them up everywhere. Like, like on your refrigerator, like at your door, as you're walking out, in your car, in your office, in your mirror in the bathroom. Like the more you see it, the more you say it, the more you write it, the more you just, basically like, and that's honestly one of my favorite things with social media is it's like, that's why a lot of people these days are like using an Instagram account just to kind of share their journey, right? Because it'll be like, hey, like I'm gonna lose 30 pounds and I'm gonna share my journey with me, because now they have the accountability of social media. They announce
Sure.
it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's been and it's been fun. I mean, it really has been fun. And I certainly didn't think that I would look back on our time and say, and you know what, that was fun. I expected it to be a grind. I expected it to be some shitty thing that you had to do so you could take your shirt off at the pool or whatever. But it hasn't been like that at all. And so I was really surprised that it was fun. I mean, it was.
I love it, man. Hey, something that lasts 8 months. It's gotta be, there's gotta be some fun in there, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, if it's, if it's with anything, if you got to grind to do it all the time, if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stick with it. Nobody's, I mean, there are days where you don't want to go to the gym for whatever reason, but I mean, most days I enjoy it, and that's why I keep going, so I don't think that your nutrition should be any different. I enjoy cooking now, and I enjoy trying stuff out and I enjoy learning about it. I try to read about it all the time, and because it can always evolve and stuff like that. And that's, yeah, I mean, it's enjoyable.
Absolutely, man. I love it. And I love the mindset. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think, anytime that, or, if we reflect, if I look back, if we look at the data of the most successful clients, of all the clients that we work with that find success, adapting that mentality it's a consistent marker, right? Like falling in love with the process, understanding what food can do to us, right? What it can do for our lives, and just really embracing that. And I think that, unfortunately, there's so many people that don't know how good they could actually feel because they've never felt that way before, or they've felt like crap for such a long time. They don't even remember how good, it is to feel that way. So, dude, I could probably sit here and ask you questions and continue on with this conversation all day long, but I know you're a busy man. I want to respect your time. But Tony, one last question here for you. What would you say was the biggest mindset shift for you throughout the 8 months of us working together?
Man, yeah, I probably, it was probably about, I don't know, just a little ways into the process, maybe 2 or 3 months. In my head, up until that point, everything was on a timetable. Hey, I would always wonder, how long is this going to take? How long are we going to work together? How long do I have to do this diet? How long do I have to be at this number, and on and on and on. And then something clicked where, like, it didn't matter to me about how long this was going to take, or how long this process was, because I had decided that, hey, this is how it's going to be from now on, and we're not going to do this for 6 months and get back down to, a 34 waist and then go back to having Papa John's on speed dial. This is how it's going to be forever. And this is how I want my children to learn about nutrition. And this is how I want my children to, just approach things. And I think that was the biggest, the number one overall change that happened. Oh, above all the education, above everything, which is great, but the fact that I just subconsciously decided, and then it became conscious, that this is how life is now. And this eating healthy and eating clean, and that's how it is now. And that's been the biggest thing for me personally.
I love it, man. I love it. It's my favorite question that I love to ask, which is, if you can't do it for the rest of your life, then what the hell's the point?
Right. Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. Well, Tony, thank you so much for taking the time, my man. I'm super proud of you. And I'm just excited to be able to follow up and see you a year, 3 years, 5 years from now, still crushing it, my man. So, dude, thanks so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, man.